Welcome back to High Tales with the Lit Sisters. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marisa.
All right, so we are on episode 3 of our ACOTAR series. We have previously had 2 episodes on A Court of Thorns and Roses, and today we are talking about our first of 3, maybe 4, but probably 3 episodes of A Court of Mist and Fury. Ooh, shit's getting real, guys. Shit's getting real.
But just as a reminder, we will never spoiler alert forward, but if we've already talked about the book, we will spoiler backwards. So make sure you listen to us in order, or if you don't care, we don't care either.
You can still be here for the chat. It's fine.
Let's talk about how this hit you after the chaos that ensued for the first book.
All right. Our little canon moment.
We ended the last book. Feyre saves the world, of course, as a true heroine would. And she goes back into her blissful life. What happens after?
Yeah. I feel like I had a dramatic turn of events very quickly. Like we already talked about in the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses, your opinions of different characters started to shift. And they did. I feel like right away in this book, Feyre was a completely different character. Like even her internal dialogue and the way she talked was different.
Yeah.
And you felt the vibe shift right away.
Well, I really liked how Sarah J. Maas, she actually had it happen like it would happen in real life. You know, these traumatic things happen. She almost died. Well, she technically dies and comes back to life. And anybody in that position would have some serious PTSD. And Sarah J. Maas did not do rose-covered glasses for that. So I really enjoyed that.
You can't talk through it while I'm dying.
Well, no, I want people to know that. So that way they can keep tabs on you and make sure you're okay.
That was a rough one, though.
Let's get
into the details.
Let's get into the details.
Yeah.
So we come back. Feyre, she is back in the spring court, and she is suffering from extreme PTSD, in my opinion.
And not just PTSD, she's getting used to her immortal Fey body.
Yes.
So she's noticing the strength, right?
Yeah.
She's folding silverware in half and things like that. She's tripping and breaking things because her legs are longer. And so not only dealing with dying and coming back to life and being in a game of your life in front of a crowd for a man who didn't do that for you, but not only all of those things happen, but also you're now immortal and in this whole new world.
Yes.
That's some pretty extreme PTSD.
Yes. So she is throwing up every night, waking up from nightmares. Tamlin, whenever he gets woken up by her nightmares or he has nightmares, she talks about how he's in beast form, perched on the side of the bed, just waiting for enemies. So she knows that he's dealing with some stuff too.
Yeah.
But again, she is just drowning.
Yeah.
And in comes a priestess who is described as beautiful, Tamlin's family friend. And we find out what these priestesses are.
So they're pretty much in charge of ceremonies, recording history. They're the soul of Prythian, essentially. So they advise High Lords and help them in various ways, big and small. And their magic, they do have some magic, and their magic is drawn from these different ceremonies that they do, which makes me kind of think of the Fire Night, right?
Yeah.
From the Spring Court.
One thing that I found really interesting is Feyre is trying to understand what this hierarchy and societal culture things with these priestesses, and she was noting that they're religious, but not by the standards that we would normally as humans associate. So she's talking about how they're not, celibate. Yeah. It is considered even rude not to embrace that feminine power and of seduction and stuff like that. So it's very interesting, the culture shocks that she's going through as she's learning about it. What are your initial thoughts of her?
My initial thoughts, in all honesty, I thought she was kind of Feyre's only outlet. And so she was coming in, Feyre's in this new world, right? Here's a girl who taught herself how to hunt to provide for her entire family. She's not a girly girl at all, but she helped her. This is what it means to run a house. This is how you do parties. Actually, I'll just do it. I'll hang out here. She knew everybody. So I kind of thought she gave Feyre the only breath that it felt like she had, you know?
Well, and it felt like in the whole first part of the book that, like, where is Tamlin and Lucian? Like,
yeah, they had to keep going off to like do something.
They're not
we don't know.
Around.
Yeah.
Like, there is very little even discussions between Tamlin and Feyre that isn't
I'm leaving.
Like, I'm leaving. See you later, man.
Or having sex. That was it.
Yes. It was, which can make a woman feel a little used and abused. So
I did find it interesting, though, that in discussions with Ianthe, that she told her that the other high priestesses don't really like her, and she doesn't really like them. Like, and then it even said that their babies are, you know, just as revered as high lords are, right? So they're obviously highly looked upon, and they're priestesses. So you're together, you're with your sisters, and then for her to say like she doesn't get along with the other priestesses, and it's fine that she's here, I was kind of like,
Well, and I felt some of that was like power grabby.
Yeah.
So it was
yeah, or like Regina George when she's like,
yes.
Oh, I love your bracelet. I hate that bracelet.
That bracelet's so ugly. Feyre's trying to find her place in the world. She goes, am I just Tamlin's lady friend? Like, what do you call me? Let's put a label on this.
Will I be a high lady? And Tamlin basically kind of is like, no. He doesn't really laugh at her outwardly. He just kind of goes, no, there's no such thing as high ladies. We high lords either have wives or consorts. And she's like,
you're never my equal. Like, exactly. Just another way to say.
It was a fluffy way to say.
Yes. But nobody's anybody's equal is his response. Like, even Lucian's mom.
She's Lady of the Autumn Court.
Yeah, she's just a little lady. No big deal. And
don't you worry your pretty little head about
it. Yes. It's I feel like this whole part of the book is very what you were taught growing up that you should want as a woman.
Agreed.
Was that too deep?
No. I wholeheartedly
it's kind
had
of like,
major like connections with this part.
This is what I'm supposed to feel.
Right.
And you hear Feyre going through it like, well, I guess I did say when I was starving that all I wanted to do was have time to paint.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I'm doing now, but I'm so intellectually and physically bored.
But then you also, every time that she's talking about it, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. I guess that's how it's...
But that's not her.
Immediately after that, have you noticed? I hate this dress. Yes. I hate the way this is. It's like... So you are reading her internal turmoil.
This is what society wants of me.
And she hates it.
But that ain't me.
It's not her. Yes. She's like literally dying inside, you know?
Well, all the life is being drained from her.
Yes.
And there's a lot of talk like throughout this that she like looks in the mirror and she looks gaunt and she is smaller. Everything fits looser. Like she can't eat. She can't sleep. She's got dark circles under her eyes.
Yeah. And Tamlin, all the while, Tamlin is continuing to be gone, defending the spring court. There's things he's got to do, which is great, but he won't tell her anything.
Yeah.
And
I'm kind of like, if that's his occupation, like, but this isn't a world where that's an occupation. Like when you're thinking 9 to 5, like, okay, my husband talks to me a lot about his work, but like normal families don't come home and be like, Bobby at work said blah, blah, blah. So at first I was like, okay with it, but then it got to the point where I think was like closing the door and like, oh, just us 3 this time. Then it was kind of like, well, no, this isn't work anymore.
Right.
This is dinner.
Well, and her big thing was when she found out Lucian had said he fell off the horse. He was like limping or something like that. And then he found out that he got like hit by the Naga. Like they were fighting Naga the day before. Did fall off the horse, but it was because the Naga attacked him or whatever. And she confronted Lucian about it. She's like, that's not cool. We're bros.
Yeah.
We're friends, remember? Yeah. Like we got this thing going on.
Yeah.
Little red-haired friend. And she made the realization there as well that like, Lucian, you had no problem sending me off as a human to go catch the surreal. And Tamlin had no problem with her wandering all around as a human.
Yeah.
What's the difference now? And that's when Lucian's like, he is terrified of seeing you with his enemies. He's terrified.
No, I think his exact words were, well, he didn't care then.
He did say that.
And it's kind of like, you had to twist the knife there? Like, here I was falling in love with this High Lord, and he was just trying to bait me to break a curse.
Yeah.
Like, it's slowly you realize.
I care about you now that you're immortal.
Yes.
You know, type of thing. And I I want to point out, Tamlin fell in love with her before and still let her do those types of things too. I guess there wasn't as big of a threat, but...
I think when he truly loved her was probably much later than when she felt it.
Yeah.
Because I think some of it was he was still faking it longer.
Well, and Lucian did a good job at that part talking about how, like, I know what that feels like. I've been in his shoes in a sense when he talked about how his wife was murdered by his dad and his brothers making him watch and all that. And he's like, we all felt it when you died, when we heard your neck snap. Like, we all felt it, you know? So you have to understand how scared he is of something like that happening again.
Yeah.
And then also everybody in the town. So Feyre is just like dying inside to go do something. Let me contribute. Let me do something. Solution's like, I'll take you out. We'll go help people rebuild, right? Mm-hmm. No one will take their help.
Yeah.
And everyone treats her like she's some walking god, and she feels guilty, like you were saying before. She has, like, I felt like she felt so guilty she was being treated that way, in all honesty. Well, or that she didn't like being treated that way.
She was considered not a person anymore.
Yeah.
Like she was either a symbol or a thing. Like, she wasn't a person. And I think she always struggled with the attention. She never liked the attention.
Yeah.
You're just a thing to people.
Right.
You're a pawn.
You're either a symbol or like a pretty plaything, or, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's bring up something that's not happening during all of this time.
Uh-huh.
Rhys is not calling in the bargain.
No, he's not.
So
she's hoping he forgot.
It's been months and months. At one point in time, somebody mentions, like, well, has anything happened with that? And I remember her just being like, this is awkward. We don't talk about this.
Yeah.
And so they just ignored it.
We ignored this massive tattoo on my arm.
She hides it behind her. Like, again, her hiding skills need a little work, because again, she's just like, oh, I will put it behind my dress pelts. Like,
do you have a glove?
Yes. Yep. But she assumes, because she's in the dark, that they're doing something to pause it. Mm-hmm. So she's just like waiting on her fate.
Yeah.
Almost.
Doesn't she think, like, maybe that's why Ianthe's here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
the dreaded wedding.
The dreaded wedding, unfortunately.
And I say that because that's how Feyre talked about it.
Yes.
The whole
her
time.
dress. Her dress was big and ugly. I imagined, like, what on Bridesmaids, that original dress on Bridesmaids. Where it was just like big, huge shoulders and just like where she looked in the mirror and just hated
everywhere.
It. How horrible would it feel if on your wedding day you looked in the mirror and you just like wanted to vomit because you looked so hideous? Because that's what she did. She looked in the mirror and was
but
like...
the whole time she's, again, making excuses like, maybe just if we get past this wedding and things will be the way they're supposed to, you know, always trying to look forward.
And during all of this wedding planning, she really says, I don't care, to pretty much everything.
Yeah, she let Ianthe pretty much do it
Except
all.
for one thing. What was that one thing she said?
No red.
Every time she sees red, she sees the blood of the people she feels she murdered to save everyone. So every time she's like, no red. She like vomits at the sight of red. Okay.
It's the source of a lot of those nightmares she wakes up from, vomiting all night long.
It's just the blood red.
Yeah.
And so Alice says, okay, let's go. Opens the door. She takes a walk out. She sees Tamlin. He's beautiful. Okay? Yeah. Like, agreed. Tamlin is hot. By the way, who do you picture as Tamlin in a movie? Without the mask.
But now I feel like I've seen the meme, but it's Channing Tatum with long hair.
Okay. So you've been skewed by the
meme. Which I think Channing Tatum is super hot.
Yeah.
Like,
I
remember him from his Doritos commercial days.
But I feel like I picture his hair a little bit like wavier than that Tamlin. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I'll go with that. So let's all picture Channing Tatum at the end of the aisle with long, flowing golden hair. And just everything's beautiful. She looks down and it's like everything's white with speckles of red dots.
How mad were you?
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, I was told multiple times.
Yes.
Secondly, Tamlin knows. How did he not walk out there and say, get all of this effing red out of here?
Yeah.
Nobody cared. And so she just paused, couldn't move.
Yeah.
She was having an event.
She was.
And she's like, I don't want to do this. Why am I here? And she like repeatedly is like, help me, help me, help me.
Somebody save me.
And smack. Rhys comes and says, oh, hey, I'm going to call in this bargain.
No, he said, I'll be honest with you, as soon as I read... Hello there, Feyre darling. I was like, woo!
Well, and it was finally like, okay, good. And she has an excuse to get away and just forget about it, right? Just like calm down, because she was having a panic attack in front of everyone and nobody cared.
Well, and Tamlin saw it. Tamlin saw she was about to say no, you know, in his, like, they kind of registered in his eyes.
Back up a little bit. When she's walking down the aisle and starting to have a panic attack, again, if Tamlin knew her, he would connect it immediately to the red. He would go to her. He would like, but he just sat there like,
how confident are you? How confident are you that
3 more steps?
He even knew her enough to like put any of that together? Like, I don't think he did know. Like, at this point, I don't know. Because he ignores the throwing up.
Yes.
If he does know, he's ignoring it. He's not sleeping through it. He's a fairy. He's got great hearing. Okay. Yeah. He's not sleeping through that. Just like he also knows she sees him up in the middle of the night protecting the fortress in beast mode, you know? What I found interesting though, your arch nemesis comes in all like, hello, favorite darling, to your wife, your soon-to-be wife on your wedding day, and is like, I'm calling in the bargain. And Tamlin was mad at first, but then was like, just don't hurt her. Like, what?
Well, come on. I struggled less with that because I was like, oh, I don't know, this bargain. That was, again, me probably making excuses for him.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know he's hurting too.
And you saw him trying. We were still, and you guys can't see my air quotes, but trying to do different things.
Yes. So now we disappear into this like thing where we in the future find out is called winnowing. And it's basically like folding up space and jumping from one spot to another.
Yeah, I saw like Ragnarok, like, you know, going through like the rainbow tunnel in my mind when I was reading.
Yeah, and so they land on this beautiful mountain, open air palace. And I think what's really interesting to me is just, even though she was angry, you could hear her breathe. And the whole time she's in the spring court, Tamlin, she's like opening windows, trying to get where it's open air because she's so scared of being closed in from the mountain.
And and I loved how like she was like smelled jasmine right away, which is calming. And she said right away it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen.
Yes.
The first thing she said when she saw Rhysand.
Yes.
The most beautiful man I've ever seen.
Same question. Who is Rhysand? We have Channing Tatum with flowing locks.
Oh, who is he now? He's still Lucifer.
Lucifer. Okay.
He's still a little, but he's growing on me a little bit for right now.
I'm picturing Superman.
Oh.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
He's now more that.
Yeah.
Again, Superman's not really my type.
Superman's my type. So let's go forward. So
you feel like you're getting kind of hero vibes.
Well, no, I don't. I'm picturing the man who plays Superman with like the cleft chin and stuff, but still Rhys and like the suit and like the Lucifer personality, but his everything else. Okay. So anyway, she's pissed. This was my wedding. And she picks up her shoe and throws it as hard as she can.
Hits him in the back of the head.
Which I love because she's like, I know that was hard because I bent a fucking fork yesterday.
Yeah.
And he like rubs his head and he's like, I dare you to do that again.
Because she grabbed her other shoe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she did. She freaking did. This one, of course, he caught. But
I like how he just goes, interesting. Too.
Yes. Like, he wasn't mad or anything. He just was like, interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, where is that for Tamlin? That's her.
What is going... she was mad about the wedding. And he's like, you were begging me. I heard you. You were begging me. And he told her, you look exactly like a doe-eyed damsel he and that simpering princess wanted you to be. Does he ever ask you why you hurl your guts up every night and why you can't go in certain rooms and why you can't see certain colors? So all the things we just said that annoyed us that Tamlin wasn't even picking up on, and we were making excuses for him because he's going through shit. Rhys knew all of it.
This basic stranger almost.
Right.
Just because he got glimpses of things that Tamlin is around to see.
24/7.
24/7. Because, like, he would just get visions of just her puking in a toilet.
Yeah. And then she's like, you know what? Throws her shoe at him.
So she finds out that she is not going to be a slave or anything. She doesn't have to go under any mountain. Oh, yeah. That she doesn't have a dungeon that she has to stay in. She has a room. He's like, you're a guest here.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? I have my reasons. It's like, okay.
It's for me to know.
It's for me to know. And she's like, I'm used to that because nobody tells me shit.
Yeah.
And then she walks down to her new room, not dungeon, this beautiful room.
Yeah.
And in the background, she hears a peppy, chirpy voice go, well, that didn't go well.
Female voice.
Female voice.
Yeah. Her room
is exactly what she needs.
It is, but like, what were your first impressions when you were reading about this like open air?
I was actually
fluffy
picturing
bed?
something very Hercules, like the cartoon Hercules with like the
columns.
columns and just like open air and like
Yeah.
just curtains everywhere.
Yeah.
But like live action version.
Live action
Hercules, Mount Olympus. That's what I was picturing.
That's pretty close. I feel like my windows were a little more closed, but pretty large, like arched windows. But the bathtub being like half, first of all, the bathroom being like half the room.
I want that room so bad.
And like an endless like tub and all these, like, it's a what are those called?
Yes.
The infinity
pools.
Infinity pool with candles. And there's always a little steam rising off of it.
So I'm just saying, great idea for the future for somebody who has a lot of money. Make an ACOTAR like excursion.
Like hotel.
And I want to stay in that room.
I'd pay a lot of money to stay in that room.
Well, I don't have much money. So I would pay a lot compared to what I have. Or I would just give it a really good review. Okay. So she finally can sleep, which is amazing.
It is interesting that right away when she got there, she could actually sleep.
Because she was all open air. So she goes to sleep. She knows that at breakfast, she's going to find out, quote unquote, what Rhys wants. Mm-hmm. We meet the person who was the voice.
That went well.
Yeah, that heckled Rhys, which I think is a very cool dynamic, first of all, because he's a High Lord. Mm-hmm. And there's that much, like, Lucien isn't even that jovial with Tamlin. So you know that this is like a close relationship. And we find out that is Rhys's cousin. And she's the most beautiful woman Feyre has ever seen. She's, got beautiful hair, blonde hair. Yeah.
So cousin in the loosest sense.
Yes.
Right? Because Rhys is a little bit darker skin,
yes.
dark hair. Morgan's got long, beautiful blonde hair.
And
very
of course,
tall.
Very beautiful.
Obviously very beautiful.
And, Feyre picks up the fork and just cracks it in half. Like normal people do.
Like a normal guess.
Yes.
In someone's home.
And again, there's like this interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, did you know you're pretty strong for a Fae? And she actually did it.
She did not know.
Every time she broke a fork in front of Tamlin and Lucien, which was multiple times, like nobody wanted to tell her, like, obviously she's got amazing strength now.
Yeah.
That says something more than, first of all, I'm not human. Second of all, I'm a pretty strong person in Fae terms, too. Then we find out what Rhys wants. And he said, I want you to learn to read.
Yeah.
And she thinks back to the time where he like jokingly said like torture would be having to learn to read. And she's like, okay, great. Torture. Nice. The second thing is mental shields. And so she learns already a lot about his power and how he can go into people's minds.
Right.
And what she didn't know was that she can stop him.
Totally different vibe.
Yes.
So she's encountered 2 High Lords in her life.
Yes.
One won't tell her anything, protects her from everything.
But actually isn't protecting her.
No.
Because she doesn't have a mental shield.
And he knows that. Because he knows this world.
Yes.
She doesn't know this world.
Yes.
He knows that. And then the other High Lord is like, hey, not a lot of us can do this. I can. I could crumble your mind in a second. Why don't I teach you how to fight me on that?
Yes. Why is he like teaching her the one thing that can fight against him? Like I was very confused. So she starts having to like write out these sentences. And this part really reminded me of like the naughty limericks that Tamlin did at the very beginning.
But cooler. Like Naughty Limericks 2.0.
Yes, like the naughty limericks were not very good, to be honest. So these were just funny, like just teasing stuff. Like Rhysand is so beautiful. Rhysand is so handsome. Rhysand loves I don't know.
I don't know. Puppies. No, I'm just kidding. Feyre, you look delicious today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, it would be easier to learn how to read and write with that type of thing than these like naughty limericks that weren't very good again. So she starts doing this. She has to do her mental shields multiple times a day. And this whole time, she is just working and sleeping and not really interacting much with anybody. Mm-hmm. So it's very different than what she assumed would happen in this court of nightmares. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. She also starts learning Amarantha isn't the end. Yeah. That the king of Highburn has been doing stuff for these hundreds of years to prepare for something bigger because he's still pissed. His kingdom has been cut off. Mm-hmm. They have nothing. It's a crumbling estate now, and he wants his slaves back. And Prythian is all that stands between the king and like the rest of the world. Rhys says, do you want to help? We need Tamlin because one, he has a long-standing relationship with Highburn.
Which was news to her.
Which was news. So she finds out that Tamlin's dad was on the wrong side of the war and was, partners with the King of Highburn, and that's how he knew Amarantha from way back when.
Right.
Tamlin has this relationship, so it's either tell us if Tamlin go into the dark side or have him use that to find out more information about what's happening.
Right. Is he with us?
Yeah.
Is he on our side?
And she's just like, looks at him and is like, he doesn't tell me shit.
You don't tell me shit. You don't tell me shit. You want me to talk to Lucian?
Yeah.
He might be your boy. I don't know.
And Rhys just looks back at her and is like, don't you think he should?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah.
Maybe,
I've been here
maybe
5 days and you've told me more than my fiance has told me in 3 months.
The other thing I like too, he wanted her also for her tracking. Right? He's like, I hear you caught a surreal. And she's like, yeah, it's not like it was hard. What? Like it's hard? And he's like, I've tried twice and failed. The most powerful High Lord in history of Prythian. Tried twice and failed.
So I love how vulnerable he is. Like,
agreed.
Away with the toxic masculinity that's like protect.
Don't you feel like this is? We've already said this, but it is totally. This book is totally tracking like my growth as a woman as well.
Yes.
And like I am Feyre in this, where it's like you make excuses and it's like you highlight the good things and you breeze over the bad things, and then like it's really like you start to get more and more of Rhys, and the more I'm like when I'm reading this, I'm like, if he wanted to, he would. If he wanted to, he would. Where it's like, no, he should just tell you things. That's the bare minimum.
Yes. Well, but also let's look at why is this enemy of my court telling me things?
Because he's not an enemy, Feyre. He's not.
So evidently Rhys trusts Feyre.
Right.
But we also know he manipulates minds.
He does. That's true.
I just think like during this 6 days, it's like her world got so much bigger.
And she can already tell in this that there's so much more.
Yes.
Right? He needs her help for something. She still doesn't even really know what that is. This is Cliff Notes version.
Yes. So I'm really interested to find out what's going to happen with this possible war.
Her last day, remember? We get a little cue.
Yes.
We get a little cue on her last day there.
She comes walking in, and usually, like, back in the spring court, everybody hushes up when she comes around or closes the door like Ianthe and was like, no, this is just us. But they just all keep talking.
Yeah. And Morgan tells Rhys that there was an attack on temple. What was that? Caesar? Mm-hmm. And priestesses were slain. The troves were looted. She sees Rhys's, like, that smokiness of the wings start, like he's getting pissed, basically, right? Like the wings are, and they actually go into full flesh. So she gets to see his wings for the first time. And I loved the way she described them. She uses very, I've noticed with Rhys, she uses very like contradictory words, almost like great, beautiful, brutal wings, you know, because it's like there's this hardness to him, but also this like absolute, he's gorgeous, but then also soft beauty as well. Oh, they were dark as night and strong as hell. I loved that line about his wings.
Okay, so they're back at the spring court. You know, she's so happy. She runs up after Rhys, says goodbye to her. She's running up. She like hugs Tamlin, tackles him. Oh, I love you. I miss you so much. Everybody jets out because like this is awkward. They're going to do it right here. But they don't.
Right.
Because it's too important. He needs to stop right now, and we need to
interrogate you. Yeah.
So
it's for your own good, Feyre.
And she's
it's for
just
your
like,
own good.
oh no, we can do that later. And no.
And I like how she just goes, really? So she described everything she saw at the night court. She tells him what Rhys said about her powers.
Yes.
Right? That it was interesting. She's really strong for a high fae.
Yeah.
Maybe she got other powers from the other high lords. You know, she's new. This is all new.
Tamlin shut that shit down real quick.
Real quick.
Yeah.
She told him about the attack on Caesar.
Yeah.
She told him about somebody named Cassian Azriel. Like, she knew their names, and they both tensed. So you knew Tamlin and Lucien knew who they were.
Yeah.
And that all three of them were hunting down and killing Illyrian war bands that were not loyal, traitorous.
And so we find out that Illyrian war bands, that is the winged creatures. That is what, Rhys transforms into with the large wings and stuff that Feyre was talking about.
Right. And so when you said Tamlin shut that shit down real quick about her powers, do you remember how he took it the whole other way? Rhys is like, it's just interesting that maybe you're the only one who's ever been formed from 7 high lords, and you were immortal, and now you are in an immortal body.
Yeah.
That's never happened before. I wonder what other powers you got. I wonder if you could wield them all together at the same time. Tamlin's reaction is, they'll kill you for their powers back.
Yeah. Yes.
No, we can't do that. We can't. There's too many risks. You can't. There'll be and there's going to be no conflict with Hybern. There's not going to be a war. What are you talking about?
Which either he's ignoring it, which is exactly what he did,
or
for
he doesn't
Amarantha,
know,
or he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of leaning, though, towards he's ignoring it, because we also found out when Feyre was going village to village that all of those villagers were under the mountain in a cell the entire 50 years.
Right.
So that, all this time I was thinking, oh, Tamlin's trying to save his land, save his people. And you find out all of his people are under a mountain in prison.
Right. For 50 years.
For 50 years. And so they're going through a trauma too.
While he's pouting about wearing a mask.
I feel like he's pouting again.
Agreed.
So he's ignoring this whole threat.
I'll be honest with you, though. When I was reading it, I really felt like I was still making excuses for him here, though.
Oh, I'm definitely still making excuses for him.
Yeah.
But my rose-colored glasses aren't as rose-colored.
I'm a little annoyed with him.
Yes.
I still love him, but I'm annoyed.
I still risked my life for him.
But let's talk about another event that annoys us about Tamlin. So we're getting to the tithe.
Yes.
That was extremely...
So the tithe is basically what I imagine as King John from Robin Hood.
I thought the same thing.
The 1970s version of Robin Hood. Yeah. King John is everybody standing in line is send me your money. And so I picture this, Tamlin sitting there, Feyre has to just sit next to him and look pretty because that's her job for hours. While people come and say thank you. She's exhausted with all of this. She finds out that if you cannot pay, you have to pay 3 times the next time.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up, and this is a fae who is not a high fae. This is a fae,
the water
rats. She says, I cannot pay. Our pond is empty.
We have no fish.
Okay, so Tamlin sits there straight-faced and says, okay.
Well, he's like, you have 3 days. Otherwise, you owe double.
Yeah. And she's like, there's still no fish. There's nothing I can do. We're starving.
Yeah.
And Feyre's looking at that and is like, I've been there.
I know what that feels like.
I know what that feels like. She has so much empathy for it. And still, Tamlin's like, nope. And then we can't make an exception.
When she calls him on it, he's like, this is how my dad did it. This is how my grandfather did it. This is how it's done.
So now we know he's a very innovative leader.
He has new ideas all the time.
And Feyre says, hell no, in her head.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, excuse me, I have to use the restroom. And she walks out and she gives her earrings, her necklace, her bracelet, her rings, all of her jewelry. And the water rat looks at her and is like, why? What do you want in return? And she's like, nothing. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. Just go feed your family. And this is such an unknown concept. I mean, if you look at her history, everything comes with a bargain. Alice told her nothing comes for free. All of this is not a societal thing to give somebody of yourself.
Right.
As the water rat's walking away, she said, me and my sisters will never forget this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, good, go eat.
Yeah.
Enjoy your food. And she noticed as she was walking back to the castle, everybody was watching her.
Everyone
the guards, the sentries, everybody in line, everybody witnessed it.
So what's Tamlin's thoughts?
So Tamlin's like, don't undermine me in front of my people.
He was pissed.
He was so pissed.
He was pissed.
And she's like, I don't care about stuff. Why are we asking people who are starving for their last bit of food when we have more than enough to feed us?
Yeah.
Her coming from a place of, I starved because of people like you.
Yeah. I felt like this hit home like right now. Like where Tamlin was very much like, this is how it's always been done. This is what my dad did. My dad before him. This is how the rich stay rich, Feyre. This is how the rich stay rich. And she's like, people shouldn't starve. Tam.
Hey, Tam.
Hey, Tam. She has nothing to give you. We don't need her fish anyway.
Lucian was like playing a very Lucian part, which I'm kind of like, at first I felt like Lucian can talk to him. Okay, Tamlin doesn't listen to anyone.
No.
And this whole time you can see Lucian being like, Feyre's right.
Yeah.
But he won't stand up and say it. And so you can see like Feyre just standing there being like, talk to him. Like, come on, man. You see
Don't back down to him.
And she accidentally slips into his mind. So now she knows, oh, it's not just I can block like Reese or somebody, and I actually have this power too.
Yeah.
She slips into Lucian's head. She's like, oh shit, what did I do? I don't know what the hell I'm doing with all these powers. She jets upstairs. She's getting ready for bed. And Alice, trusty Alice, who I think was like our second favorite character in the first book.
She legit is like Mrs. Potts or something, you know? Like
but
she just
cool.
comes in, but kind of like rough too.
Yeah, like she's from the hood.
Yeah. She's a hood Mrs. Potts.
I love it. Okay.
Medea.
Yes.
No.
But she acknowledged Feyre and said, okay, I know Tam's freaking out right now, but you really did something good.
Yeah.
And though these water wrath may
squander
it,
yeah,
and they all might be right, you gave people hope and like belief in goodness.
People aren't going to forget that.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, at least Alice will say something.
I mean,
at least the servant will talk.
Alice a down ass bitch. I get it.
Tamlin is like, I'm so sorry, and groveling, and gives her random shit that she doesn't want or need.
What I loved, how she's going to open this gift, this I'm sorry gift, and she's like, please don't be a crown. Please don't be a crown. Please don't be a crown. Which I was kind of like, oh God, watch, it probably is. Or the same jewelry set that she gave away. And no, it's paints.
Which she hasn't touched any paint. She abhors red.
Yeah.
She like can't, and there's red sitting right there in the middle of this paint set. But I was still sitting there going,
he's trying to help bring her back. He's thinking he's bringing her back.
And rightfully so. And this is what I think all of us try to do as like part of our emotional intelligence journey is the first thing she says is, I get it. Like, I did undermine you in front of your people. That's not a good look. Yeah. And that could, I hear you, that could, result in people thinking you're not powerful or whatever. I don't understand the court politics. And he kind of said, okay, just don't do it again.
And here's a travel paint set.
And here's a travel paint set.
What I love is her little sassy ass was like, am I going to have an escort to paint around the manor as well?
And he said, you.
That kind of started their tit for tat back and forth.
So finally she tells him, just straight up, like, you're suffocating me.
She said, I'm drowning. And the more you do this, the more guards, you might as well be shoving my head under the water.
Yeah.
And that set him
He just explodes. And it's just a huge boom. And she's like crouching on the ground. We find out, and she was like, oh, thank God.
But he protected
Tamlin protected me. And then he comes to try to like make sure she's okay. And he can't get through. And that's how she realizes, oh, I shielded me, not him. And she doesn't even know how to put the shield down.
Yeah.
It's like pure instinct that she's using these powers that Tamlin refuses to acknowledge.
Right, exactly. She saved herself again.
Yes. And she looks around the room beyond the shield, and everything is effed up.
Yeah.
Like the paint can, it's splattered red everywhere. So that makes her think blood.
Yep.
But like everything is demolished in the whole room. So if she didn't have powers, if she was even human right now, he would have killed her. Yep. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was so mad when this happened.
Yeah.
But like, what is she supposed to do? She's Faye now. She walks out the door and goes where? Like, she can't go home.
This was really the situation where all the little annoyances became like, this isn't a safe place for you.
No.
Yeah.
So, have you ever watched The Maid?
Yes.
So, it reminded me of that one time that he, like, came up to her and just punched right by her face.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, well, he didn't hit you. But it's like, bitch, he tried to.
Yeah. Yep.
Even though I'm not hurt, that's still scary.
Screaming, you're not safe.
Yes.
You're not safe here.
So, I was like, find your closest shelter. That's where my mind was.
Yeah.
And again, I hate that I did this, but I also made excuses for Tamlin in that moment too. I was pissed. I was like, she needs to go, but you also need to get help.
Yeah.
But not with her.
You have to save yourself before you can
yes,
be with someone else.
And then maybe
Tam.
they'll come back together after they're both done suffering from PTSD.
Tamlin definitely needs some help.
He's struggling, and he's making me angry. So, couple days, Tamlin's, I'm sorry. You know,
I'll never do it again,
He also just keeps freaking leaving.
He does.
So this 3 weeks goes by, and they're either having sex,
or he's gone.
Saying I'm sorry, or he's gone.
Yeah.
So she wakes up. What happens when she wakes up? Naked, and
when she hears their voices out in the hallway, and she hears voices, and she gets up and runs to the door, realizes she's naked. Right? Puts like a blanket on or something, right? Grabs one of the throws and peeks her head out. And it's Rhys there to take her back for the next month. And Tamlin's like, no, you won't. And I love how in that moment, Rhys just looked over at her and he's like, are you running low on food here? It was like his way of putting a dig in, like, you look like shit again.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't been sleeping, you haven't been eating because you're in a cage, Feyre. I'm trying to tell you. Yeah. And then
all the progress we made in that week.
You put on weight, your ass was looking good. No, but I love how Tamlin, he's like a little like guy that's called out and is like, don't you say that to her. And like starts bark. And Feyre's thinking like, wow, Rhys didn't even flinch. I would have been terrified if Tamlin's teeth were at my neck like that. And he just looks at her, he's like, no, you wouldn't have. Last time he did something like this, you smacked him, remember?
So he's obviously reading everything in her brain.
Yeah. Well, that made her mad too.
Yeah.
She was like, why are you in my head?
Get out of my head. So she gets in the night court clothes, which are actually much more her style because it's not frou-frou dresses. Right. It's like sweatpants and t-shirts, which is
crop top.
Somehow I feel like I fit in the night court because of their clothes.
Don't you think everybody
not their night attire though?
Don't you think everybody reading it was like, this is where I belong?
I mean, I feel like I even went more casual. Tell me what's going on in the day court. Can I just lounge by a pool all day?
I think I'm going winter court.
Give me some hot cocoa. Okay, Rhys takes her back and he's like, oh, here's some sentences. And she's like, boom, boom, boom. Rhysand is wonderful. Rhysand is great. I know how to read now. And then he's like, I'm going to go for your brain. And she's like, knock, knock. Nice try, motherfucker.
You don't realize how much Tamlin left me alone and I kept practicing.
Yes. And she's like, okay, touche, Feyre, touche.
Yeah. So she's reading and stuff like that. And I did like that one night where she's reading in the library and he comes in and he's like taunting her to help her. He's worried about her, right? She hasn't eaten. And remember, he like puts the plate and like keeps pulling it away.
Yeah.
Until he's like, open up to me. Talk to me, right?
Yeah.
And he sees her pain. What did he say? He's like, don't let her win. That bitch wins if you fall apart.
Well, and I think he's also testing. What can you do? Aren't you interested?
Yeah.
This isn't you to just like sit in a corner. The life has been drained out of her. It's so sad because what we loved about her in the first book is like, she got this. She was either grabbing a cereal to find out what's going on, hunting for food because her family's starving. She was the go. Like,
as a human.
Yes.
And then as a Fae, it's like now everything's like drained away when it's supposed to be so much more.
Yes.
So she has her time at the night court again, reading, mental shields, kicking ass, taking names, right?
Yeah.
Back at Spring Court again.
She gets taken back home. This time Tamlin's waiting at the oak tree because he's like,
that's right.
Nope, you won't surprise me. I'm going to be here. I'm going to make sure Rhys gets off my lands immediately.
I'm going to puff my chest up.
Yep.
Be like, I'm the tough man here.
We call it.
Yeah, I got the big dick. And Rhys is like, no, you don't. You're boring. Bye. And he winnows away.
Yes. the sentries are in full force. When he was sorry a week ago, it was, okay, everything lightened up. At least she couldn't see the sentries. They would hide from, in the background. No. Now they're like
locked down.
Double what it was.
Yeah.
Every time she leaves the building, there's 6 people around her.
Yeah.
And Lucien sees this, and he knows her and sees her drowning here.
She's trying to ask Tamlin to go out with them again. And he's still saying no. Can't do that. You can go on a horse ride with so-and-so. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I want to go with you. He's still saying no. And in one of these interactions, Lucien sees her hands becoming claws. Shape-shifting.
So it's definitive proof that she has power.
They haven't talked about it really, right?
No, they're ignoring
this
it.
hasn't happened yet. And sees that Tamlin and Ianthe do not.
Yeah.
So right away he kind of does one of the, hey, come over here. Yeah. How long has this been going on? She's like, it's the first time.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to be doing training. You need to, I'll talk to him about the training again. Later that night. Broke my heart.
Yes.
Because Lucien, for Lucien and for Feyre, in all honesty, Lucien, again, homeboy, trying. He's like, she needs to be prepared. She needs to know this. And both Ianthe and Tamlin away
why
are
does
like,
she get a vote? She shouldn't get a vote. That's what pissed me off. It's like, if Feyre doesn't get a vote, this bitch doesn't.
Right. And so they just keep talking about, like, they're afraid the other High Lords are going to come after her and their future children. And the nail in the coffin, I think, is when Ianthe is like, and Tamlin, if they think you're going to get more powerful children because of this, they might take her and basically breed.
Okay. And so they're...
Nail in the coffin.
Yep.
Right? Straight to his ego. Oh, and they throw in the Rhys's poisoning her mind. Because she's calling their bullshit out little by little, right?
Yes.
And then the part that really broke my heart is she like felt the magic from Tamlin like snapping at Lucien. When Lucien's like, we just need, and she could feel it.
Just shut down.
And she couldn't imagine what he was doing, but she knew he was doing something. And my heart just went out for Lucien and Feyre, in all honesty.
So the next day, they are all getting ready to go. And she's like, let me go.
Yep.
And Tamlin's like, no, you stay here. Stay in the house.
And this was the time that she pushed back and she was like, she was realizing in her head, the girl that needed protecting, you didn't protect. And now I don't need protecting. And like, I've always done it myself. And that girl that actually needed protected, she's like, she died under the mountain.
Yeah.
She's gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Tamlin doesn't care, doesn't see.
No.
And he walks out. Lucien walks out. And Feyre goes to walk out. Boom. There is a shield in the house.
Yeah.
Mind you, we already know she's claustrophobic because of Under the Mountain. So she's trying to get out. Lucien looks at her and says,
Don't even try.
Don't even try. Only Tamlin can undo it. It's like this until he comes back and just jets out too. He's like, I'll try to talk to him again. And we know Lucien talked to him doesn't do anything.
Right.
So she's like opening the window and pushing out. Remember, the whole time she's having nightmares is always opening the windows, getting air in, getting fresh air in. And she just starts this panic attack.
Yeah.
She has these powers. It is a swirl of darkness and fire and ice and just all of these powers. And she doesn't know what's happening. The sentries are around her don't know what's happening. And all of a sudden she hears 2 voices. One of which is Alice. Hey girl, hey!
Girl, Alice.
And one she doesn't recognize immediately, but we find out it's Morg. Yes, it's More. And so all she hears is Alice say, just take care of her. Alice knows.
Which I found to be extremely sweet.
Alice didn't say don't take her.
Nope.
Alice said take care of her.
Yeah. And Alice doesn't care what Tamlin's going to say when he gets back. Like she a down ass bitch.
Yes. Feyre, she gets swooped out by Moore. So they walk out through like that secret under the mountain passage. They come up somewhere else and Rhys is there and they winnow away. That was intense.
It was.
I am angry.
Yeah.
I am so mad.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me calm down while you give your reaction for a second. I feel like my anger is overtaking everything.
I was surprised I didn't see it coming, right? That morning, I thought it was just going to be another argument. Maybe she was going to show another power or something like that. And then when Tamlin walked out and she couldn't get out the door, I'm like, no. I think I audibly just went, no.
Yes.
Because once that happened, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little annoyed at my boy Lucien as well. I don't think there's anything he can really do at this point. point.
Nothing he can do.
But the fact that he's like, there's nothing you can do. You might as well just wait for him to get back. It's like, why is everyone just like okay with like this kind of behavior? Like, that's not okay to lock someone in the house. Like, that's not okay. I was
livid.
pissed. Yeah.
I was so livid.
As you can be at a fictional character
and
that you once loved.
And I really was enjoying like how they were growing to love each other and everything. Oh gosh, I am so mad at him right now.
Well, like I used to think he just wasn't my kind of guy. Like I liked their story, but it's like, oh, I'm kind of more into the bad boys and stuff. This definitively was like, no, you're just not a good guy. Like I just don't like you.
And remember earlier this episode, we talked about how this is what we were taught you want in a guy.
Yes.
Like the whole idea of this like possessive nature of men is what we're taught. Like, she's mine, jealousy, like guys were fighting over me. That behavior.
Protecting. Well, guys, what do we need protected from?
Guys.
Oh, shadow work.
Okay, so she's finally safe in the night court. And Rhys tells Feyre that she can stay as long as she wants.
Or in an instant, I'll take you back.
Whatever you want. Yeah. And she's like, okay, well, when I go back, he's like, you don't have to go back. You came here of your own volition, not part of the bargain.
Yeah.
So you be you, boo.
And she goes, I'm not going back right now.
Yeah. I'm going to think about it for a second because I can't breathe there anymore.
Yep.
So Rhys is like, you can do whatever you want. You can go to your room. I have plans. And she's like exhausted, but she's like, take me with you. Because she's tired of just being left behind.
Yeah.
And he says, sure, let's go. But he also says, if you tell anybody anything you've seen, you endanger millions of people.
Yeah, he thought about it for just a hot minute. That's about it. And he was like, I loved how he was like, all right, here's the deal. Up until now, I know you've been telling Tamlin everything. I know you've been going back there. It's cool.
It's cool.
I would have probably done the same thing. I don't know. But this one, you can never tell them. So if you decide to go back to him, this will still always have to be a secret. Who you talk to here, what we talk about, and what you see.
Yeah.
So if you can't make that commitment, you can't come with me. Yeah. But if you can, we could go right now, boo.
And they go.
And she goes, give me 15 minutes. Give me 15 minutes. I'm going to go take a shower and get ready.
Yes.
So what I thought was interesting is while she was getting ready to go, where she didn't know where she was going, she was like, there are no cities. So I'm probably going to a ruins, like nothing but ruins or whatever. You know, probably the same thing Tamlin's doing. He's got to go out and fix things or whatever. There's no cities after Amarantha. And when he was like, all right, that was more than 15 minutes, but let's go ahead and go. And they winnowed into a townhouse. And her first impression was, this is a home. It wasn't ornate. Nope. It wasn't where she was at the night court. It also wasn't the spring court. It was a loved home.
Yeah. Worn furniture.
And that's where we end with the first book. And we're going to enter the House of Wind next. I was not expecting that. I was expecting like some magical place, right? Maybe, or like a war type scene that they were going to. I was not expecting a townhome, like a very human kind of description of a human home, a human house.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions?
I'm still pissed at Tamlin.
You're still with Feyre. Like, just, I don't care where the fuck we're going.
Yeah, just don't leave me behind.
Get me out of here, and I'm done. And I used to hate you, I thought, and then I pretended like I hated you forever, and now I'm going, yeah, take me with you.
And my initial thought was, like, safe house. Like, right. It felt very much, I'm hidden where nobody can find me.
Yeah. Like,
so
maybe
I
you're
can
in the
just
middle of nowhere.
digest what the F just happened there.
Yeah. But then you also are like, okay, obviously it's not ruins.
Yes.
We're obviously somewhere. This is a loved home that's lived in. Okay, so we're at the end of our first episode for A Court of Mist and Fury. Right now, who's your favorite character?
Not Tamlin. Not Lucian either. Stand up to your brother.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll probably continue to make excuses for Lucian till the end of time.
I agree.
But I agree with you.
You pity him, but you're also like, if
my boy.
I'm sorry, if your husband locked you in your house, I wouldn't like leave with him and be like, I'll go talk to him. I wouldn't be trying to knock down the door to get you the F out of the house.
Thank you. Same for you.
Thank you. So I was kind of irritated by stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand he's your high lord, whatever.
Yeah.
but I just don't like anybody.
It's not cool, bro.
I don't like anybody.
You don't like anybody. I will say, because it's hard, because I mean, you could say Feyre, but I also, this is such a weakened state of her. It's not who she's right. The girl under the mountain died. Like, this is a new character right now, really going through some stuff.
Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, it's hard too with Rhys. There's been such a character shift. I wouldn't say he's necessarily. I might say
You're
more.
Intrigued.
I might say Moore's my favorite right now.
Yeah.
Kind of like when I said Lucian.
Save her.
Yeah, kind of like when I said Lucian before. I'm kind of looking for these sleeper characters, and she's brand new, and she just exudes like happiness and a bright future.
Yeah, but not happiness like Elaine. Like Elaine is like naive and like living in.
This is strength.
This is like happy but confident.
This is where you belong. Like she feels like home when you read when she's there and how she makes Feyre feel. So I would probably say Morgan is my favorite right now. I would agree with you. Not Tamlin.
Not Tamlin.
I thought the end of the last book, when I said Under the Mountain, you're going to have shifts in characters. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, this was a severe shift very quickly. I mean, at the end of this, we're on chapter 13 of like a 60-some chapter book.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've had a severe change of opinion
already.
Very quickly.
And I understand that he's going through shit too.
Yeah.
He's treating her like a slave human almost.
Yes. And Lucian went through a lot of shit under the mountain too. Lucian had other stuff in his past that we know about too. And he can at least see these things. He's not
tragic,
selfish.
if not more.
Probably my least favorite part is I feel like a stupid girl.
I do too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
I should have seen this.
I liked Tamlin more than you liked Tamlin.
You did, because I always just thought he was too goody for me. I wasn't like into him, but I wasn't not into
him.
And
I love the goody guys.
You do.
Yeah.
You like the Prince Charming.
Yeah, and you like the bad boys. So that's why
Prince Charming is like, he ain't bad. He's a good brother-in-law. See, you love Prince Charming. I can love him that way.
Yes.
But he's not my guy. And that's kind of what I thought Tamlin was. And now I'm like, no, he's not the guy. You ain't nobody's guy. What are you most excited about for this next third of the book? Because we're definitely going to have at least 3 episodes for this book, I feel like.
Agreed.
So this next third.
So this next third, I am like in download mode. I feel like all of a sudden this world has gotten so big and I only know 1/10 of the information around it. So I want to know, what is all this stuff? What's going to happen with this war?
Right.
Who are all these
Who's
people?
on our team?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also like, what is her future? Because she's obviously hiding out. Is she going to go back to the Spring Court or
is she going to go see Perinthian?
Like
help with this shit and like get it
help
done.
Rebuild. Who knows? But I think I'm really looking forward to knowing more and understanding more, because her small village was her world. And then all of a sudden it opened up. And we realized it opened up to such a small area of the world.
Right.
And all of a sudden it just exploded. And I'm like, I need to understand this island. We're talking about an island if you look at the front of the book.
I know.
So it's like this island, and we haven't even gotten to any other part of the world.
Right. Except for where Ianthe's parents fled with her for 50 years is over in Valhallan. You saw that? That's on like the mainland area.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention that. That was another reason that's kind of, they just like took off and like waited for 50 years and didn't do shit.
I am okay with that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's one of those things where it's like, save the women and children.
But it was her dad.
Save the rich people, I guess. That sounds less good.
I mean, it's them. It's describing them. This is the part of the book that we can closely relate to like real life. But
I would say everybody's instinct was to flee. So I'm like, I'm okay that they did that. They could have brought some people with them, but whatever.
All right. Well, I think that is the end of this. So thank you for joining us as we talked about A Court of Mist and Fury. And watch for our next episode where we're going to discuss the next like third of this book.
Yes.
Right? So please follow High Tales Lit Sisters on Instagram, YouTube, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for talking High Tales with your favorite Lit Sisters.
Goodbye.
Bye.